Watch this.
What would you do with $1 billion? Well, if you're living in one of the Gem State's smaller towns, you might consider using it to fix the plumbing, because that's how much it will cost Idaho to keep it from wearing out. From having the first ever city powered by atomic energy to building a first of its kind fallout shelter, nuclear power has long been part of Idaho's history. Now Governor Little wants it to be a bigger part of the future.
It's 2025. Own your domain name, own your digital assets.
For the price of an appetizer, one Pocatello politician is getting a full plate of publicity and a chance to prove his point that it's time for fresh ideas on the city council. You know, we take it for granted. You turn on the tap, expect clean water to come out. You flush the toilet, you expect the bad stuff to go away. It's simple, right? Not exactly. Across Idaho, keeping those two things happening safely is costing more than a lot of small towns can handle. In fact, as Hunter Funk found out, 2 new reports show Idaho needs more than $1 billion to fix our drinking water and wastewater systems. And that burden weighs heavier on the rural communities.
We expect it without a second thought.
A lot of people don't think about it because they just take for granted that they turn on the faucet and the faucet runs and it's clean water and even something that we can drink.
But meeting those clean water expectations is costing more than many Idaho communities can afford. A recent study by the University of Idaho found communities need more than $1 billion this year alone to work on infrastructure for wastewater and drinking water. The cost comes from aging facilities, the state's growing population, and environmental regulations. CEO of the Idaho Rural Water Association, Shelley Roberts, says small towns are already carrying a heavy burden to keep up.
For, say, the city of Boise, the cost of infrastructure is several $1,000,000, and that's divided by thousands of people. But in many cases, the basic infrastructure, there's just a base cost, and it's very expensive.
The University of Idaho study mirrors what the American Society of Civil Engineers Idaho report card showed earlier this month. Nearly 70% of Idaho's $1.7 billion drinking water needs over the next 20 years falls on small systems with fewer ratepayers and limited staff. And wastewater needs a $2.6 billion investment needed over the next 20 years, falling once again on most rural communities. In the report card, drinking water and wastewater were given a C+, which means the infrastructure was holding up, but is aging and failing to keep up with population growth and environmental standards. It also showed that there are 65 reports of wastewater treatment plants with violations to the Clean Water Act, and that while most public water systems meet federal standards, small systems are more vulnerable to compliance issues. But meeting those needs could become even more difficult, with Congress weighing a proposal from the White House to strip away nearly all funding from a federal program that helps local governments pay for water projects through low-interest loans.
Many times, the federal funding that has been received, most of it, is low interest rate loans. It's not grants, so it's not handouts. So those low interest rate options really help allow the community to move forward on their project in a more economical fashion. If Congress chooses not to fund those low interest rate loans, then we can go out on the open market, but you're looking at a several difference in interest rate spread, which then is going to further increase the cost to a community that's already burdened with trying to keep up with the costs that are already very high and difficult for them to manage.
Without those loans, rural towns faced higher costs, higher taxes, or the projects simply stall out. And the longer the projects get put off, the more expensive it gets. Despite the challenges, there are some bright spots. Robert says federal COVID relief dollars and state programs like Leading Idaho have funded projects and even nudged Idaho's drinking water grade up from a C to a C+. For now, advocates like Roberts are urging lawmakers to keep water infrastructure a priority so the taps keep running and rural communities aren't left behind.
I feel hopeful that Congress will continue to support these programs, and we will continue to work on this until some of the challenges can be relieved. And that's one reason we worked with University of Idaho on that research report, and we'll be using that as a tool to communicate to our state legislators.
The Idaho Rural Water Association says they will keep working with both state and federal lawmakers heading into next session, hoping to secure long-term funding so small towns can maintain and upgrade the systems that all of us rely on every single day.
Okay, so this money that they're talking about, that spanned over 20 years, is that correct? Okay, so it's still a long time, but it's still a lot of money.
Right.
And we saw a little bit of this, just a small sample of this, what happened in Idaho City when we got that heavy rainfall, and they had to kind of shut down their water system. Now, granted, that's a small example of that, and not really the same when it comes to the pipes and stuff rotting away.
Exactly. I think you've said it really well too. And when we say, $1 billion now, I mean, who's to say how much that will grow over time as well? But yeah, Idaho City is a good example. They said McCall, they said Cascade, all the places we recreate, usually under that rural category.
And gets overused a lot by people just passing through town. And the tax base isn't there to pay for it. All right, thank you very much, Hunter. Well, it began in 1951 when the Idaho National Laboratory's Environmental Breeder Reactor 1, just outside Arco, harnessed enough nuclear energy to power 4 light bulbs. Then 4 years later, an entire city. It would also be the not so bright spots, like a meltdown later that same year, followed by our country's first and only fatal reactor accident in 1961. The history of nuclear power is riddled with highs and lows, of course, but all along, over the ensuing 6 decades, Idaho has been involved in the advancement of nuclear as clean energy. And more recently, there's been a bit of a renaissance of nuclear in America and the world, too, to work on solving the looming energy crisis. And of course, the Gem State just might be at the center of that solution, with Governor Brad Little signing an executive order this afternoon. So we bring in Joe Paris with the question is, what did we get committed to doing?
Basically, the state of Idaho is going to work with the federal government to, as you highlighted, be one of the centers of the nuclear world, specifically at INL, Brian. And this is all part of the Western Governors Association meeting at INL. Governor Little signed the executive order at the National Lab establishing the Idaho Advanced Nuclear Energy Task Force. So the goal is to position the Gem State at the forefront of nuclear innovation under the Trump administration's new energy policies. And among its primary objective, the task force, they will evaluate the feasibility of deploying advanced nuclear technologies within Idaho to start out, including small modular reactors, microreactors, and molten salt reactors. Governor Little explained why.
The world is changing rapidly. Energy demand is expected to increase by an unprecedented 30% in the near future. We cannot do that with our legacy energy. We are going to have scalable, safe nuclear energy. We are uniquely positioned here in Idaho and with the lab. We are the home of the lab, the nation's flagship nuclear research facility, and a global leader in innovation.
Governor Little went on to explain how the president's recent executive orders on energy fits with his vision and how Idaho is positioned to benefit.
They will look at everything from workforce training, one of the president's EOs, regulatory modernization, one of the president's EOs, and partnership with the federal government and private sector to ways Idaho can strengthen the role of America's nuclear hub. It's not just about technology, it's about Idaho's future. Through this task force, Idaho will continue to lead not only in supporting innovation, but shaping the national conversation about energy dominance and stewardship.
There are certainly questions, though, out there, critics who have concerns about spent nuclear fuel, or nuclear waste, so to speak, and what to do with it, what dangers come with it. And Governor Little addressed that. He says that projects on that very topic are crucial at INL.
We got to figure out how to best take care of it. And John's team here does all the cutting edge research on how long do you burn this fuel? What happens when you burn it? He's got a library out there, they call it, where they're doing all this research. Somebody is going to build the scalable small modular reactor or other reactor. We are in a race with our enemies about what country's going to win this. But the progress that we've seen literally in the last 6 months, my confidence has gone way up that we're going to win that race. And a lot of it's because of what John and the people here at the lab have done.
And when you ask questions about, well, why is there going to be such an increase in energy use? What is this potential energy crisis? Brian, it really focuses on things like AI. And I don't know how many of our viewers realize the amount of power AI uses. For example, they said if you use explanation points when you're using something like ChatGPT or you say thanks, I mean, on average, it costs millions of extra computing dollars to just put in extra characters. And when you kind of zoom that out to the global stage, the energy demands are significant for big projects.
And by energy in Idaho, that usually means water. So that applies to that. But this microreactor stuff, this was kind of part of what they wanted to do instead of the wind farm there in the Magic Valley with that proposal, that kind of microreactor stuff. Again, we'll see what happens with that. I know that one didn't get a lot of publicity or hope going forward.
It is still on the table, and it's so interesting that you mentioned water in this conversation because Governor Little, as a practical application, said you could use some of these smaller nuclear reactors to do things like water desalinization, which could really help address the water crisis in the American West.
I was going to say, not here, but
just California,
our neighbors.
Colorado River,
I got it. All right, thank you very much, Joe.
Like, the truth of the matter is anybody could have bought that domain.
But it was the council president's competitor that did. The kind of political millennial move you'd expect in 2025. Strategic or shameless? Now's the time to put your shame aside and share your thoughts on the show. Or maybe you've seen something interesting out across the 208 and you can't wait to tell us about it. Well, don't wait. Text us at 208-321-5614. As always, include your name and the hashtag #the208.
This is an election year. You're the incumbent. Here are the areas where Pocatello residents feel that the city is not meeting their needs. This is one of those ways that I can highlight in real time, one of those concerns that people in Pocatello are having.
What's in a name? It's the beginning of a classic quote from Romeo and Juliet. That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet, is the end of it. Which is basically saying, even if you change the name of something, that thing still retains the same qualities, right? But what if it didn't? Basically, what if a name was just laying around, not being used? Could somebody use it for something else entirely and change what it represents? Well, that's basically what has happened in Pocatello. Back in June, Kevin Lewis decided he wanted to run for Pocatello City Council. And just before he filed his candidacy for Seat 5, that would be last month, Kevin made a discovery that he says encapsulates his campaign and why he wants that seat. What else could Gate City be missing out on if its leaders can't keep on top of the basics, basically?
It's showing up when it matters. And as long as I can remember, I've shown up. And now I'm running for city council.
When Kevin Lewis decided he wanted to hold office in his hometown, one of the first things he did, check out the competition.
And so we're looking for other candidates, what their platforms are. We go to look for Miss Lurik's campaign platform, and there's no website.
That's when Mr. Lewis learned Miss Lurik had let her domain name lapse. So Kevin did what any millennial might do. He bought it. $12.
Yeah.
Not as a prank, he says, but to prove a point.
In my mind, it's 2025. You know, you should have a website, and it should be up to date, especially when you're the incumbent and you're wanting to keep this seat.
I'm a 5th generation resident of Pocatello.
It's kind of one of the common themes I'm finding as I'm knocking doors with folks here in Pocatello is they really feel that, you know, Pocatello is a city that has missed a lot of opportunities. And so I'm a big believer in, yeah, let's see where those missed opportunities are. And this was one of them. And it's created quite a stir. So,
well, probably because you didn't just buy it, you redirected it.
Mm-hmm.
To what?
To my website. Yeah.
Yeah. Linda4Pocatello.com now sends people to KevinForPocatello.com.
When we purchased it, we didn't announce that we purchased it. We didn't say anything about it. I just redirected it to my website and just left it alone. And so it wasn't even Miss Lurick who brought it to the public's attention. It was another candidate.
I'm sure you've heard the criticism. It is petty, it is childish, not necessary.
Yeah, I ignore the criticism.
Even criticism from the domain's former owner. Linda Lurick did give a quote to East Idaho News. It said, "The only reason Kevin Lewis would purchase my domain name is to play dirty, try to gain an advantage by confusing, misleading, and tricking my supporters and voters." What do you say to that?
I honestly think it's kind of a funny statement because that's not what this is. If I was trying to trick her voters, I could have redirected it anywhere. She called it unconscionable fear-mongering, which I just think is just out of touch with the way the world works right now. So while this might be like a super minor and frankly dumb issue, it's just it's one of those things that says, you know what? Yeah, Pocatello, you're right. A lot of people, you know, in leadership, they're just missing the things that younger folks like myself value. I'd rather us be talking about how do we address the housing crisis as it's facing young people in Pocatello? How do we address issues with childcare? This is what voters are seeing. This is what voters are talking about. They're talking about missed opportunities.
Oh, yeah. Anybody could have bought that website or that domain name and directed it to any website, even nefarious ones. But Kevin said he did not do that. He made sure to point out this is not a criticism of Linda personally or a knock on the work she has done for the people and city of Pocatello, just a call to a lack of attention to detail. And he added he would give it back to her, give her back her domain name if she asked for it, which he says she hasn't. We did reach out to Linda Lurick several times to get her side of this story, but we yet to hear back from her or her campaign.
All right, quick check of traffic on this first PM drive of the new work week. We're seeing some slowdowns in the usual spots, getting out of Boise on the Flying Y and then through Meridian heading into Nampa. Taking about 24 minutes right now to get from Boise to Caldwell. So all in all, not bad. The one thing, though, you'll need in your arsenal this week as far as your wardrobe, you will definitely need those sunglasses. They will come in handy over the next week or so as we have nothing but sunshine in store. Our first day of fall, absolutely beautiful. Yes, a little cooler than normal, certainly cooler than we were over the last couple of days. 73 right now in Boise. The kicker here, those northwest winds at 16 miles per hour. We've had breezy winds throughout the day, lending a very crisp feel to this first day of the new season. Your evening, though, looking lovely. Winds will start dying down as we get closer to our 7:41 sunset. We'll dip into the 60s pretty quickly after sunset. And looking ahead to tomorrow, we keep breezy winds in play, but they will feel notably different as they will be from the east-southeast tomorrow. That will help propel our temperatures into warmer territory, but not in the morning. This is what you need to prepare for your Tuesday morning. We'll dip down into the 40s across nearly the entire Snake River Plain. We could see temps as low as 40 out in Ontario. Definitely jacket weather. Will be in the 30s and even 20s up in the higher elevations early on. But look at some of these temperature swings. Stanley starting off at 24, getting up to 71 tomorrow. We'll hit the low 80s across the Treasure Valley, mid 70s with sunny skies and breezy winds in the Magic Valley. So really beautiful for our first full day of autumn, and we will stay very comfortable as high pressure. That's our big dominant weather feature that will be in control for the next several days. So we are kind of straddling two seasons this week. It'll feel like fall in the mornings, summer in the afternoons. Look at this 7-day forecast. By Wednesday, we hit 86 degrees in Boise, almost 10 degrees above normal. We stay very warm on Thursday, and then we keep the sunshine around for the weekend, even as temperatures drop a little bit for the final weekend of September. Gorgeous, though, if you're heading out to the Boise State game on Saturday. Picture perfect. 82 degrees at kickoff. We stay in the 80s on Sunday. A few clouds come in Monday, but otherwise sunshine rules for the next week.
So how do you remove a massive 400-pound flag flying over a canyon? Well, you call on those who know how to handle themselves in dangerous situations. Meanwhile, Boise Parks and Rec now has a new leader. Here's Morgan Romero with today's 411.
A fire burned dangerously close to homes in Eagle last night. Crews responded just after 11 o'clock near Hartley Lane, north of Beacon Light. Several structures were threatened, but crews were able to get a handle on it. No structures were damaged, and no word on what started the fire at this time. The two men arrested for allegedly using a fake photo shoot to lure a victim into the foothills made their first court appearance this morning. Devin Larson and Steen Lamb were arrested on September 5th and September 8th after Eagle police say they lured a victim to the foothills under the guise of a fake photo shoot and later restrained and beat him up. During a hearing today, their preliminary hearing was rescheduled to October 6th while prosecutors wait for more evidence. The defense also asked for bail reduction for both men, but those motions were denied. A massive American flag was safely retrieved from the Perrine Bridge in the Snake River Canyon over the weekend. Weighing more than 400 pounds and measuring 150 by 80 feet, it wasn't an easy task. Members from the Twin Falls County Sheriff's Office, Twin Falls Search and Rescue, and others worked together to retrieve the flag. When the wind finally calmed, crews guided the flag into a boat. It's now ready to be cleaned and stored for next year. City of Boise announced its newest director of Parks and Recreation. Mayor Lauren McLean selected Sarah Arkle to take over the position. Arkle is the current Parks and Rec superintendent and has spent the last 10 years overseeing the city's park system and leading foothills and open space initiatives. She's expected to be confirmed by City Council September 30th. Current director Doug Holloway is retiring in October after decades of service. The city of Caldwell is inviting everyone to welcome home Alyssa Mendoza tomorrow. The hometown boxer just finished representing the USA at the World Boxing Championships in Liverpool, England. The celebration is happening from 4 to 6 at Indian Creek Steakhouse. And that's your 411 on the 208. I'm Morgan Romero.
All right, let's get to look at some of your comments. Today, we got 3 to look at, I think, here. With regard to the community infrastructure, stop looking for federal taxpayers to pay for your failure to address your own needs, says Bill J. Okay, so what if Idaho's rural communities are surrounded by a whole lot of federal land that doesn't allow, say, timber industry anymore? Where's that tax base going to come from other than the feds? That's something a lot of places in Idaho are dealing with right now. Whatever happened to the nuclear waste Idaho got stuck with from many years ago, and what will happen to any produced in the future, asked Fred. Remember that bill, or that I guess it was a lockdown in 1995 that was passed. There was a waiver signed this last April that allowed some more nuclear waste to be sent into Idaho from several places like Virginia and universities. We'll see how that plays out. We'll see you tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.